It happened again last night. You opened your eyes and the room was dark and still. You looked at the clock, 3 a.m., and maybe you tried to go back to sleep. Maybe you turned over, adjusted the pillow, told yourself it was just the noise from outside or something you ate. But you could not go back. Your mind was suddenly, inexplicably alert, as if something had pulled you from sleep with a purpose your conscious mind had not yet been informed of. You are not the only one this happens to. And I want to tell you something that the people in your life, including most pastors, have probably never told you. The moment of 3 a.m. has a meaning that transcends the physical. It has a history in Scripture. It has a pattern in the lives of the people God has used most powerfully throughout human history. And whether what is happening to you in that hour is spiritual, psychological, or both, by the end of what I am about to share with you, you will never experience that hour the same way again. I am going to tell you about 5 things the Bible reveals that actually happen in the 3 a.m. hour. But the 5th one, the one at the end, is the one that ties all of them together and reveals something specific about where you are right now in your spiritual journey. Stay with me. Let us begin with what we know from history and Scripture about this hour. The ancients divided the night into watches. The Romans used 4 watches: evening, midnight, cockcrow, and morning. The 3rd watch of the night, what the Jews called the morning watch, fell roughly between midnight and 3 a.m., and the 4th watch, which the Romans numbered as the last, extended through approximately 3 to 6 a.m. In the ancient world, this deepest part of the night was understood to be a threshold time, the boundary between one world and another, the hour when the normal barriers between the seen and the unseen became thinner. And what the Bible records in this hour is remarkable. In 1 Samuel 3, there is a boy named Samuel sleeping in the temple. 3 times in the night he hears a voice calling his name. 3 times he goes to the old priest Eli, thinking Eli has called him. And Eli, who himself had largely stopped hearing from God, eventually recognizes what is happening and tells Samuel what to do. When he calls you, you shall say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." The 4th time God called, Samuel was ready, and what God spoke to Samuel in that night changed the entire trajectory of Israel's history. Notice the pattern here. Samuel needed to be taught how to recognize the voice. He needed someone to interpret for him what was happening. He was being awakened at an hour when every natural instinct said sleep, and instead of fighting it, once he understood what was happening, he opened himself to whatever was coming. The first thing that can be happening when you wake at 3 a.m. is this: God may be creating a space for you that your waking hours simply do not have. Think about what 3 a.m. is free from. It is free from your phone, from the demands of the people in your life, from the anxiety of tasks undone, from the noise of the world. It is perhaps the only hour in your entire day when you are genuinely stripped of every distraction. And for some people, that stripping is the only way God can get a full, uninterrupted audience. The Hebrew word for the still small voice that spoke to Elijah in 1 Kings 19:12 is kol demama daka. It means something like a sound of thin silence, a barely audible quietness, the kind of voice that can only be heard when every other sound has been removed. For many people in the modern world, the 3 a.m. hour is the only time thin silence exists. It is not an accident that something in you wakes there. The second thing, your 3 a.m. might be directly connected to a battle happening on your behalf in the unseen realm. Now, I say this carefully because I am not a sensationalist. I am not interested in making the spiritual life into a horror film. But the book of Daniel provides one of the most fascinating windows into what the Bible presents as the reality of spiritual conflict intersecting with human time. In Daniel 10, the prophet had been fasting and praying for 3 weeks. Not 3 hours, 3 weeks. And then an angelic messenger appeared to him and said something that has never left my mind since I first read it as a young man. From the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia opposed me 21 days. Your prayer was heard the first day, but the arrival of the answer was delayed by a conflict in the unseen realm that lasted exactly as long as Daniel continued to press in. 21 days. I am not making a formula out of this, but I am pointing to a reality that the Bible presents as literal. There is a dimension of activity happening around your life that you cannot see, and there are moments when you are pulled into wakefulness because something in that unseen dimension is pressing toward you. When you wake at 3 a.m. and feel immediately, inexplicably alert, one possibility that deserves your consideration is that the moment is bigger than it appears, and the appropriate response is not panic or fear. It is the posture of Samuel. Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. The third thing, your mind at 3 a.m. has access to what I call the undefended truth. During the day, your conscious mind is constantly managing. It is managing how you appear to others, managing your expectations, managing the things you are afraid to fully think about. A kind of editorial function runs all day long, selecting which thoughts reach full consciousness and which ones get pushed back down. At 3 a.m., that editorial function has been put to sleep along with the rest of you. And what rises to the surface in that hour is often the thing that most needs to be addressed. The relationship you have been avoiding thinking about honestly, the decision you have been postponing, the sadness you have been converting into busyness during daylight hours. The question you are afraid to ask God because you are not sure you want the honest answer. Psalm 16:7 says, I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. The night has an instructional function in David's life, not just prayer in the night, but receiving instruction in the night. The Hebrew word for instructs there is yasar, which can mean to discipline, to instruct, or to chastise. David is saying that the inner voice of his own heart, under God's tutelage, does its most honest teaching in the nighttime hours. This is not mysticism. It is what modern psychology would call the access to the unconscious that comes when the conscious mind releases its regulatory grip. The Bible was describing this reality thousands of years before psychology developed the vocabulary for it. So when you wake at 3 a.m. with a thought or a feeling that has been waiting, do not reach immediately for your phone to fill the silence. Sit in it. Let the undefended truth surface. It may be uncomfortable, but it is more productive than anything the screen can offer you at that hour. And I want you to pay very close attention to what comes next, because the fourth thing is one people rarely hear in church. The fourth thing that can be happening at 3 a.m. is spiritual warfare that is specifically targeting you. And I want to address this without drama, because drama is exactly how the enemy wants you to receive this information, with fear, with obsession, with an attention that flatters him. There are people who wake at 3 a.m. in a state of anxiety, of heaviness, of inexplicable dread. This is not always a spiritual attack. Sometimes it is cortisol patterns. Sometimes it is unprocessed stress. Sometimes it is the return of a wound that has not been addressed in the daylight hours. But sometimes, particularly for people who are in a season of significant spiritual development, or who are in the middle of a significant decision, or who are specifically committed to something that the enemy wants derailed, there is a targeted intentionality to the disruption of that hour. Paul writes in Ephesians 6:12, We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. He is describing a war that exists at a level we cannot physically perceive. And one of the theaters of that war is the interior life, including the hours of sleep. The response to this is not fearful awakenedness. It is not covering yourself in every direction and lying rigid until morning. The response is Psalm 91 understanding. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. That word dwells, yashab in Hebrew, does not mean a person who occasionally visits. It means one who habitually inhabits. The protection of Psalm 91 is the protection of permanent abiding, not emergency prayer when the problem arises. If you are someone who regularly wakes at 3 a.m. in a spirit of heaviness or dread, the prescription is not more spiritual warfare language. It is deeper habitual dwelling in the presence of God during your waking hours so that the shadow of the Almighty extends naturally into your sleep. And now I want to give you the fifth thing. The one I promised you at the beginning. The one that ties everything together and speaks directly to where you are right now. The fifth thing that happens when you wake at 3 a.m. is this: you are being positioned. There is a moment in the Bible that almost nobody preaches on, from Matthew 14. Jesus has sent the disciples across the lake in a boat. He has gone up into the mountain alone to pray. And the disciples, in the middle of the night, in the middle of a storm, rowing against the wind, exhausted, afraid, suddenly see a figure walking toward them on the water. Matthew records the timing precisely. In the fourth watch of the night. The fourth watch, that is 3 to 6 a.m., that is the last watch, the darkest part of the night, the part when exhaustion is complete and hope is at its most depleted. And it is exactly in that hour that Jesus came to them, not in the beautiful morning, not in the calm evening, in the fourth watch, in the thing they were least prepared for, most frightened by, most inclined to interpret as a threat. And I want you to hear this as if I am speaking directly to you, because I am. If you have been waking at 3 a.m. for weeks or months, going through something that has left you rowing against the wind, exhausted, afraid, wondering where God is in the middle of your storm, and you feel like you are in the last watch of the night of a season you have been enduring for too long, you have company. Jesus walked on the water in the fourth watch, specifically to meet them where they were, at the exact hour of their greatest exhaustion and fear. He did not wait for them to get to shore. He came across the water to them, in the dark, in the storm, in the last watch. The positioning of your sleeplessness at 3 a.m. may be an appointment, an invitation, a door in the dark that looks exactly like a problem but is actually an encounter dressed in storm clothing. When you wake tonight at that hour, do not scroll. Do not lie there in anxious circuits, running the same worries in loops until the alarm sounds. Sit up. Breathe slowly. Open your hands literally as a physical gesture of receptivity, and say simply, I am here. Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. Then wait, not for thunder, not for visions. Sometimes the instruction comes as a thought that arrives with unusual clarity. Sometimes it comes as a peace that you did not generate. Sometimes it comes as a memory of a scripture. Sometimes it comes as nothing at all, and the act of sitting in the thin silence is itself the gift, the only hour of the day when you are fully, undistractedly present with the one who created you. If this changed something for you, if the next time you wake at 3 a.m. you will approach it differently because of what I have shared, leave a comment and tell me what you are going to do differently. I read them, and your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read. If this reached you, share it with someone who has been waking up in the night and does not know what to do with that, because the person who needs this most is probably not going to find it on their own. God did not design darkness as a place of abandonment. He designed it as a place of formation. The furnace of Babylon was dark inside. The belly of the fish was dark inside. The tomb was dark inside. But none of those darknesses were the end of the story. They were the middle, the part that precedes the morning. Your 3 a.m. is not a punishment. It may be the most holy hour of your day. May God meet you in the fourth watch. May He walk to you across the waters of whatever storm you are navigating. May the thin silence of the deep night become the loudest thing you have ever heard. And may you wake in the morning knowing that you are not alone. Be blessed.